Central City Police Department, an hour later. Barry had no idea how to explain himself as he sat at the table in the middle of the windowless interrogation room where he had been for the past 40 minutes. He looked up at the fluorescent light, then toward what he knew to be the one-way mirror behind which investigators observed interrogations, and finally at the two chairs on the other side of the table that, for now, remained empty. Sighing, he never thought he would ever be on this side of a case, where he was the suspect. He was supposed to be the one sorting through evidence and finding what was needed to put a criminal away. However, the overriding emotion going through him was not fear but happiness. Happiness that his mother and father were alive. Happiness that a younger version of himself would grow up united with a family that loved him. Barry knew that Joe and Iris loved him, and he loved them in return. However, not growing up with his own parents had always been something completely different, and that was what he wanted, what he needed. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more fanfiction podfics. It really helps the channel grow. Knowing that he wasn't the Flash anymore also brought a sense of fear into his heart. In his mind, he tried to connect the events that had changed people's fates after he became the Flash in 2014, hoping that he would still be able to help them somehow. However, his thoughts returned first to the night he had been struck by the lightning bolt. He remembered the events that had happened only a few hours earlier. Oliver, Barry thought to himself, frowning. He remembered that the only reason he had been in Starling City was to investigate the impossible, which had turned out to be a Mirakuru-powered Cyrus Gold, so that he could find a clue to the identity of the person who killed Nora and, in turn, free his father from prison. In this new timeline, with both his father and mother alive and well, Barry suspected that his other self would have no reason to visit Starling City or meet Oliver, Felicity, and Diggle. He knew that if he didn't intervene somehow, there would be no way Oliver could survive his fight with Cyrus Gold. I remember the date, Barry thought as the door to the room opened and a detective walked inside, his badge and gun clipped to his belt. Still dressed in his Flash uniform, Barry watched as the detective studied him from head to toe before frowning slightly. The man placed a writing pad on the table and lowered himself into the chair across from him. He can't die. Somehow, I have to make sure Oliver doesn't die, Barry continued thinking. And that's not all. There was the attack by Captain Boomerang. I still can't believe Cisco named him that. Then there's a rescue at Nanda Parbat. And then there's Laurel's death. There had to be a way to warn him, but not now. Oliver was only a kid at this point. So was Felicity. What a time to need Felicity when she wasn't even old enough to work a computer yet. Okay kid, the detective began, resting both hands on the table. My name is Detective David Singh. Detective? Barry nodded politely while wondering who was watching through the mirror. Something told him that Joe was probably there, along with someone from the district attorney's office. He then studied the younger version of the man who would become his boss in 13 years and wondered whether it would be better to tell him everything while hiding some of the more important facts. I would like to hear from you what happened, the detective continued, starting with your name. My name is Barry Allen. The detective leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms over his chest, his frown deepening as he studied the young man sitting across from him. Barry knew that whatever story his mother had come up with would quickly be torn apart, especially under further scrutiny. He feared that Nora would be asked question after question until her life was turned upside down. So he decided to tell a story that was partly true. My name is Barry Allen, he began evenly. I'm from the future. And if you want to hear the rest of Barry's impossible confession, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next chapter. Excuse me? Detective Singh asked as he leaned forward. Before you start, the man interjected, waving his hands. You waived the lawyer, right? Barry nodded. How about a shrink? Singh continued. Maybe we should. I'm not crazy, Barry insisted. I am from the future. 2016 specifically. I know how crazy it sounds and... Oh, at least you know it, Singh replied sarcastically. So, 2016, huh? Any flying cars where you come from? I can prove that I'm from the future. Barry's face remained completely emotionless. Detective, I am, was, I guess now, a CSI with the Central City Police Department. And you were, or will be, a captain, and my boss. Oh, will I now? The detective muttered with a frown as he stared at Barry in disbelief. Yes, look, there was a massive explosion of unknown origin. I never figured out what caused it, but it released a lot of strange energy that seeded a storm cloud, and I was struck by lightning. I gained metahuman abilities, and I wasn't the only one. My friends and I did everything we could to stop the bad ones. Go on, the detective prompted. Barry could tell from the tone of his voice that Singh did not believe a word of it. Probably giving me some rope to hang myself before I get sent to the loony bin, Barry thought as he forced himself to breathe calmly. My powers were speed related, Barry explained before pointing to the lightning emblem on his chest. I use my speed to fight criminals. If you're listening right now, drop me a comment telling me where you're listening from. I love seeing where in the world these stories reach. I even helped the CCPD deal with metahumans, and my friends created tech that could hold them. With my speed, I managed to break the time barrier twice, all to stop the man in yellow. This man in the yellow suit who was savagely beaten, Singh asked as he displayed the photographs taken at the Allen home. Barry visibly winced as he studied the results of his handiwork. Thorne's face bled from the eyes, mouth, and ears, thrushed in several places. The man was nearly unrecognizable. Barry could only frown as the memory of Nora being stabbed resurfaced. He knew what he had done was the right thing, yet he still felt uneasy about losing control. Yes, Barry replied as he lifted his gaze from the pictures to the detective. His name is Yobart Thorne. He was known as the Reverse Flash. He killed my mother, Nora Allen. Nora Allen is alive, Singh reminded him. I created an alternate timeline, Detective, Barry answered. Thorne murdered my mother because he was angry that he could not kill me. It's complicated, but try me, the detective urged as he leaned forward. Trust me when I say that you are already halfway through the door to the psych wing at our most exclusive place for nut jobs. Everything you have told me so far cannot be proven, whoever you are. I was just giving you some background, Detective, Barry replied while leaning back in his chair. A moment later, he leaned forward again, resting his arms on the table in front of him. Fine, you want the complicated version? He exhaled slowly before continuing. The world I remember was itself an alternate timeline. When I traveled through time the first time, I saw something that I believed was impossible when I was a kid. Blurs covered in yellow and red lightning swirling around my mother. I saw a yellow figure inside the storm of lightning, and one of the others was another version of me, a future version. He told me not to intervene after I ran back into the house, and I had to hear him take my younger self away. Then I had to listen to my mother scream just before Thorne stabbed her. Again, she's alive. This is the past I knew, Detective, Barry explained. She died, and my father, Henry Allen, went to prison for her murder. My older self sent me 20 blocks away before vanishing. That's where you found Barry, the younger Barry, right? Just continue, Singh instructed without emotion. However, Barry noticed the man glance toward the one-way mirror before returning his attention to him. Barry resumed his story. He skipped over several parts of his life and friends, but he did mention Zoo. I didn't know his real name, Barry admitted. In truth, Barry knew there was a Hunter Zolomon on Earth 1, and he did not want to get the child into trouble. Nor did he want to disturb the Garrick family, if they even existed here. It was something he had never checked in his own timeline. But he was a murderer. I had to train hard to become just as fast as he was. Eventually we fought, and he lost. Barry paused briefly, but not before he killed my dad. So, let's assume that what you say is true, Singh murmured while rubbing his forehead in frustration. That would mean both my parents were murdered, Barry admitted, his voice tight. And it was my fault. Unknown to Barry, Joe was listening from the other side of the mirror. Standing beside him were an assistant district attorney and through a favor, the recently recovered Henry Allen. In the meantime, Nora and the younger Barry were in the bullpen. There, the younger Barry was being questioned by another officer while Nora sat beside him, her attention divided between her young son and the man she knew in her heart was her son from the future. As the older Barry spoke inside the interrogation room, Henry and Joe exchanged confused looks while the ADA remarked that getting the crazy person away from the Allens would be a cakewalk. Henry then focused on the man in red when he heard Barry's voice crack, just for a second, as he revealed that the other version of himself had died in his son's arms. After Zoom was stopped, Barry continued after taking a moment to steady himself. I couldn't take it anymore. I told Iris that I was empty inside and... Iris? Singh interjected as Joe stepped closer to the glass, silently hoping Barry wouldn't mention who he believed it was. Joe knew that if Barry did, it would feel real to him because he was already convinced the young man in red was a crackpot. Iris West, Barry clarified. After my mom died and my dad was sent to prison, Joe West took me in. Joe turned toward Henry, who stared back at him with wide eyes. If anything ever happened to me or Nora, Henry murmured as he joined Joe at the mirror, I always hoped you would look after Barry. None of this proves anything except a delusion, and the ADA began. Stop, Joe cut in abruptly, snapping his head toward the mirror when he heard a familiar name, Francine. That's my proof that I'm telling the truth, Barry insisted as he faced Singh. Francine West was Joe's wife, and she's going to have a son, Wally West. That's not... Sorry, Detective, Joe interrupted as he stormed into the room after throwing open the door. The detective rose to his feet and informed Joe that this was highly irregular. But Joe ignored him. The ADA rushed in as well, while Joe turned to Barry. What do you mean Francine was my wife? Joe demanded. And what can you... Officer West, the ADA tried to interject. Joe, Barry cut in, interrupting the ADA as she attempted to pull Joe away. After you told Iris the truth about Francine leaving you and Iris years ago, she told me that very truth. Iris doesn't blame you at all for lying about why Mrs. West left. But I can tell you that Francine's pregnant with Wally. She just didn't know how to tell you. How long? Joe asked, tears filling his eyes as he jerked his arm free from the ADA's grip. How long have Wally and I... You just met him a year ago, from my perspective, Barry replied. It started off a bit difficult between you, him, and Iris. But he's, or he was, a member of your family. And Francine? She died, Barry answered quietly. Joe's eyes widened. Officer West, Singh called uncertainly. Joe, Barry pressed before the man could respond. Francine gave birth to Wally 8 months after she walked away from you and Iris. The day Francine died, Iris said she wished Francine had come back with Wally sooner, so that you all could have been a family. Check on Francine. You'll see she's proof that what I'm saying is true. Oh my God, Joe whispered before glancing at the detective, who slowly nodded. Joe rushed out of the room, pushing past the bewildered ADA to issue a be on the lookout notification for Francine West. This could take some time, Barry remarked as he turned toward the stunt detective and the ADA. Do a DNA swab on me. Compare it to the Barry of this timeline. We should be mostly the same. He leaned forward slightly. I know you want to hear things I couldn't possibly know. So here goes. My dad used to call me Slugger. My mom read me a story called The Runaway Dinosaur. And if I'm not mistaken, just yesterday afternoon, I was beaten by some bullies on my way home from school. When I got home, my mother told me that having a good heart was better than having fast legs. For me, that happened years ago. But for the Barry of this timeline, it happened just yesterday. Ask my mom. She'll confirm it. Let's assume, by some strange miracle, that what you're claiming is true, the ADA responded, fixing Barry with a skeptical look. Why didn't you just run away? I wanted to go back to my time, Barry replied, glancing down at the table before looking away from the ADA. A trace of sadness crept into his voice. But saving my mother in this time must have changed my future, and I lost my speed. I can't run that fast anymore. I don't have my powers. Stay here, Singh ordered before he and the ADA hurried out of the room. closing the door behind them and leaving Barry alone. 30 minutes later, Singh returned. Barry noticed immediately that he looked slightly pale, as did the ADA who followed him into the room. "I was telling the truth, wasn't I?" Barry asked. "We'll have a technician come in and take a swab from you," the ADA replied evenly. "It'll take a few hours, and then we'll know the truth of who you claim to be." "I don't know how you know the things you know," the detective added, his hand trembling slightly. "But we will get to the bottom of this." Singh and the ADA had already spoken with Nora, who confirmed what Barry had revealed about the beatings from the bullies, as did Henry. 10 minutes earlier, Officer West had privately and confidentially told them what had truly happened with his wife and why she had left. The combination of that information, no matter how unbelievable, gave Singh, Joe, and the ADA an unsettling feeling that Barry might actually be telling the truth. But they still couldn't bring themselves to believe a story like that. A man from the future, with super speed. Yeah, they had to make certain this man claiming to be Barry Allen was telling the truth. They hoped the DNA test would shed some light on what was really going on. As they stepped back into the hallway after another 30 minutes of questioning Barry, the detective and the ADA exchanged uneasy glances, while quietly debating what the detective should file if Barry's claim turned out to be true, if the DNA confirmed that Henry and Nora Allen were his parents, and that he truly was an older version of Barry. "It won't," the ADA insisted once they had moved several doors down the hallway. "There's a reasonable explanation for everything, Detective, and time travel isn't one of them." "Then what about everything he said so far being supported by the family?" Singh challenged. "He could have been spying on them," the ADA countered. "And Officer West?" Singh pressed. "This person claiming to be Barry Allen couldn't have been spying on him. I know the officer. He's a good man. He wouldn't lie about something like this." "Look," the ADA replied, raising both hands in exasperation, signaling for Singh to stop pressing the issue. "We'll wait for the results, both from locating his wife and from the DNA comparison with the kid and the parents." "What if this is impossible becoming possible?" Singh asked quietly. "Then you, me, Officer West, and the Allen family will be keeping one hell of a secret," the ADA muttered as she rubbed the back of her head nervously. "Otherwise, we're all heading for the loony bin." If you enjoyed this chapter, please like the video and subscribe for more Flash and Arrowverse fanfiction. And if you would like to support the channel even more, share the video with another fan of the Scarlet Speedster. To be continued.